All right, hi guys, how are you doing today? You good? Do you have a great 5 days? All right, that's awesome. I'm here today and I have the next 45 minutes to tell you a little bit about what I do, and then we're going to go into a little bit of a workshop. It's going to be really generative, it's going to be really noisy, and hopefully really fun. I'm loving some of the questions that you were asking the panel just now about how to create impact, how to start, and how to create tangible solutions for the projects that you're doing. But first, so there you go, I'm Lishan. And I got this really nice introduction from the team over here. Yeah, I think there are a lot of questions on that side. Why don't we just give it, yeah, it's cool, it's cool. Don't worry about it. All right, great. No problem. So, here are a few things to know about me. Now, you just heard this intro, which was a mumbo-jumbo of words that you can pull out from your programs, as well as from, if you Googled my name and put it on LinkedIn, this is what you'll see. And I wouldn't blame you if this doesn't make much sense to you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself as well. And through all this, I'd like you to keep in mind that the title of today's presentation is Practicing Human-Centered Design. So what does that mean? And I'm going to try to use this presentation to bring that across to you. Okay. So I was trained as a journalist a long, long time ago. And on the weekends, I also do a little bit of flower arrangement. So those are some of my arrangements that I bring to my friends and family on the weekend. I also like taking classes a lot. So you can see there I am trying to learn how to dance because I'm not very good at it. And then you can see over there I am learning some pottery. And then you can see down there on the right that I also took classes in etching and printmaking. On the weekend, I also enjoy taking very, very long nature walks in different parts of Singapore. And last but not least, I don't know whether you can see it very clearly. It's not very clear from where I am. I'm wondering whether I can get the lights over here dim a little bit because it's quite, my presentation is quite graphic heavy, actually. Perfect, thank you. So those two cakes at the bottom, what you can't see, the one down there on the left, is 3 layers of cornbread, and it's covered with mashed potato, and there's fried chicken on top. And I made all of that. And this one over here is macaroni and cheese stuffed into a bowl and toppled over for a colleague's farewell because she loves unhealthy food, and but she's also vegetarian, so you can see little cucumbers surrounding the thing. But now here's a question to you. What do these things tell you about me? Yeah, just shout out the answers. What do these things tell you about me? And? Thank you. That's very nice of you. So I love to explore, and I love nature, hence the flowers and the walking. I like making things for my friends, and I love learning new things and improving myself. So I think these pictures tell you a lot more about me than something like, like that. Right? Okay. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I work and maybe why I'm here today. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the firm IDEO. We started as a product design firm in Silicon Valley more than 30 years ago. We are most famous for designing the first Apple mouse, as well as the first laptop that all of you were using. But as we've gone on over the past 30 years, we've also realized that the same methods that a designer uses to design a thing can also be used to solve some of the world's biggest challenges. So how do people use a laptop? How do people use a cup? How do people use anything that you see, a pen? All these things have to be designed, right? Now, if you use those principles to think about things like education, think about things like sanitation, about how to make people manage their money better, those principles can be applied as well. So this was the beginning of a methodology that IDEO, the company that I worked at, coined, which is called design thinking. But don't worry about this scary-looking Venn diagram over here. All you have to remember is that it starts with people. So desirability over there on the circle on the left. It's a human-centered approach to innovation that basically combines what people want with technological possibility and the requirements for business success. So start with people and use those two things to think about what your options could be. I work with a ton of different people. So I, like I told you, am a trained journalist and a design researcher, which means I go into the field and talk to people and understand what they're about, what their lives are about, what their needs are. My colleagues are product designers, graphic designers, interaction designers. Recently, I just worked with an architect because we're designing space and experience together. So getting that diversity of talent on your teams and different ways of looking at problems is very, very important. So what do we do? And I know that you guys are all about impact, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Our mission at IDEO is to create positive impact in the world through design, which is not very much different from what you guys are all here to do today. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So we worked with the Bank of America, and all these are public, by the way, so I'll give you some resources at the end of the talk where you can actually read more about these things. All right, so this is a project that we did with the Bank of America. They came to us and said, we want more people to open more saving accounts with us. And we were like, hang on, you're jumping to conclusions a little bit too soon. Why don't we go and understand how people are managing and saving their money first before we dive into what the solution can be, right? Because usually you go, okay, we need more marketing, we need like a celebrity to front this campaign that makes people save, we need an advertisement, that kind of thing. We're like, no, no, no. Let's go and figure out what people are doing. And in America, there's a very peculiar behavior where people actually round up their bills. So if a bill comes for $27.40, we realize that what people do is actually put $30, and then they just pay this. So we came up with this bank account that allows you to round up to the nearest dollar, and it takes that extra, so that $2.60, and puts it into a saving account. And I have the numbers here, excuse me, I'm gonna find it. Okay, and in less than a year, it attracted 2.5 million new customers. And it was very, and this is one of our most famous pieces of work, but I think what was very interesting is that once this came into the market, many other banks around the world tried to copy what it was, and it failed terribly across the world because it's very contextual to American audience. I mean, none of you guys round up, I bet. We don't round up in Singapore. They don't round up in the UK. This would never work there. So this is what we mean by actually going in and understanding people's needs and building on the existing behavior. So in all of your countries, there are particular behaviors that people are already doing. When you're thinking about your projects, what are people doing to already work around the problem? And what can you do and how can you design off of that? All right, next example. This, there we go, toilet bowls. In terms of creating impact in the developing world, we have a not-for-profit arm called IDEO.org. And this is one of my favorite projects that they did in Ghana, in Kumasi. And it is basically the delivery of home sanitation to a city of 2.5 million people, where only 33% of them have running water at home, and even less of that have toilets. Can you imagine what it's like living in a home without a toilet? And how do you even solve for that? I mean, it's not, you can think of all the ways in which they currently do their business. They're number one and number two right now, and it's everything that you can imagine that it is. But without having a toilet at home, when you think of the human need that it's describing, it's the lack of dignity of actually having a private place to pee and poo. Now, that is something that we're also trying to solve for. So to cut a very, very long story short, and this is also public, so you can go read about it, we not only created the product, which was this toilet over here, that allows you to pee and poop hygienically. We had designed the business model around that, and we designed the brand and service. So now there's actually a team called the Clean Team Ghana, Clean Team Toilets actually, where this team of people actually goes around collecting the waste in a very efficient manner. They also collect the money, and they actually recycle that waste. And they're scaling it up. They piloted it 3 years ago with 50 families, and now they're in, I think they're 20,000 today. And last but not least, in terms of creating impact, this is another very famous example that's very recent. It's Innova Schools in Peru. So we worked with Carlos Rodriguez Pastor, who owns a big conglomerate called Intercorp in Peru. And he came to us one day and said, I need to create an education system for the Peruvian low and lower middle income families. How do I do that? Because Peru actually ranks consistently in the bottom 5 to 10 in terms of education levels in the world. And I want to change that. So we sat down and we came up with a mission, which was to create a new generation of leaders in Peru. How do we do that? And they engaged IDEO to help them think about everything from how the school is designed, to the curriculum, to teachers' training, right? And having that mission, and most of all, it had to be profitable. So going to the school only cost you $130 a month, 100 USD a month. And I think there's some pretty impressive numbers to date. So I think we started with 3 schools. Now we have 23 schools. And we've got 13,500 students in these schools. But I think most importantly, math proficiency at 2nd grade, 67% versus national average 17%, and 83% reading proficiency versus national average 33%. And I think just having that mission around, I want to create a school system that breeds the future leaders of this country is very powerful, because it allows you to make choices, right? Should I build a swimming pool, or should I invest in a curriculum for my teachers? The choice becomes very, very clear. Okay. Now moving quickly along. Now how do we even begin to design for all these things? How do we even start? Just now there was a great question from somebody about how do I even start to think about my project, my problem, my startup. So I have today, there are many ways you could do it, but today I thought, for simplicity's sake, let's do 1 methodology, 1 mantra, and 2 principles. So 1 methodology. So this is how many people actually start. So I raised to you the Bank of America question. They came to us and said, I just want more savings accounts. So there they go. You're making choices of what you can do based on what you think is in the world. It's based on a series of options that you've already defined, right? Now today, I think what you want to do, this methodology helps you to create more choices, starting with the needs of the people that you want to serve. So all of you are serving a particular need in your communities, in your countries. What are those needs? How do you get to the bottom of those needs? And how do you think about how to solve them? 1 mantra. I will put the customer at the heart of everything that I do, right? So don't forget the people that you're serving. And the workshop later today will help you do that and help you frame your thinking even better. So I'm just going to give you another example of some work that we did. We were approached by a big hospital who said, I want to improve the patient experience. And they said, we've gone to all these other consultants, and this is what they gave us. This is how you improve the patient experience in the hospital, with big flow charts, understanding patient feedback, how do you get nurses to exchange information, and they were at wit's end. So they came to us, and this is my colleague, Christian, and here he is lying in a hospital bed with a little video camera. So we had our big meeting where we were supposed to tell the story back to the president of the hospital about what the patient experience was. Oh, okay, this is supposed to be a video. I'll figure out how to play it in a second, but we played 9 minutes of this. This is your patient experience. Your patient experience is 9 minutes of looking at the ceiling. And while you're being wheeled around the hospital, you can hear the nurses talking to each other. This is patient A, and oh yeah, he's got this, he's got diabetes, and he's got this and that, and then okay, bye. And the whole experience is just so isolating, so confusing. The patient doesn't know where he is, what's wrong with him, he's scared. The hospital is not the best places, right? So this is your patient experience, and you can compare that with the flowcharts that you got and how much more impactful and how much it speaks to the needs of what patients are looking for. Oh yeah, okay, it's playing a little bit, but basically it's just a ceiling. Tech problems, give me 1 second, no problem. Yeah, don't worry about it. So based on that, and of course a lot of insights that were presented, what we did was start to prototype different things that could improve the patient service experience here. So on the left, you've got hospital gurneys, where we just tacked on a little mirror that allows you to have eye contact with the patient, small changes. And then you've got new kinds of roles, like guides within the hospital that would tell family and friends how to move throughout the hospital. In each of the patient's rooms, I mean, these things are so small and so easy, and this is the beautiful thing about going straight to needs, in that when you understand how people are feeling in a situation, you can then design to meet those needs that they can't even articulate themselves. So, you know, a whiteboard that could make a hospital room feel more like home. Okay, so don't forget, customer at the heart of everything that you do. And 2 principles on how to do that. And we're going to start, ooh. Okay, we're going to start an activity in just a second, but the first of them is to be a detective. Okay, that sounds quite fun, right? And this is the reason why you have to be a detective. Because what people say, what people do, what they feel, and what they say they do is completely different. And I think understanding that is the start to being able to design something that's super empathic and really, really meets the needs of people. It's the start of human-centered design, if you want to say that. And you must be thinking about what that is in the background. And that is a credit card that is frozen in a block of ice. And I'll tell you why. Because we went to this lady's house and we asked her, are you good with your money? Do you manage your money well? What your spending habits like? And she was like, yeah. I save, you know, I don't do impulse buying. I'm really good at managing my money. And honestly, if you gave her a survey where she ticked those things, she would tick, yes, I manage my money very well. And then we're like, all right, can you show us how? What are some methods that you use? You know, do you use spreadsheets? Do you have a table? Do you have something that you tabulate stuff every month, every day? She's like, no, come to my freezer. And she opens it, and there is a block of ice with a credit card frozen in it. And I'm like, excuse me? What is that? And she's like, okay, this is how I work. If I see something I really want to buy, I take this block of ice out of the freezer and I put it in the sink. And then I go think about it and I go and do my thing. And then if I come back and if it's still on the block of ice, I'll just put it back in the freezer. But if it's completely melted, I'll go buy something. And I'm like, you just said you know how to manage your money really well. And she's like, yeah, it really, really works. And I'm like, and that tells me so much about how this woman thinks, right? So be a detective, get in there, understand how people are doing the things that they say they do, because what they say and what they do is completely different. So, just to get you guys on your feet a little bit, I need each table to pick a volunteer. This is a quick 10-minute exercise. Each table picks a volunteer. You good? Now, who's a volunteer? All right, can all the volunteers stand up, please? I just need one from every table. All right, And I want this volunteer to empty the contents of their bag on the table. Don't worry, there are many other chances for volunteers later, and these guys have already taken the hit, so next time it'll be someone else. Can this volunteer take out the contents of their bags and put it on the table? I think we can get the lights on for this one actually, so they can actually see their stuff better. And if your bags don't have very much in them, either pick someone who has a big bag or empty out your wallet. One of the above. We're not letting you get away so easily with that one. All right, keep going. Okay. And it'll also be great if the rest of you could, put away your laptops, put away what you're doing, because this is an activity that will involve the whole group. Okay? So your friend has just done us and place your stuff out on the table. All right? And now I want the rest of the group to gather around, get on your feet and gather around and look at the contents of that bag. And from what is in that bag, I need you to be a detective and find out, and if you can see from that bag what kind of person your friend is, your friend that took out everything. What are you carrying with you today? And just to tell you, we do this all the time. I go into people's houses regularly and they take me into their bedrooms. All right? All right. So scribble down some observations that you have. Ask your friend some questions if you don't know what's on it. If you don't know what those things are. If you like, get them to flip you through the wallet, flip you through their cell phones. And I want all of you to come up with a set of questions to help you understand the volunteer better. Ask them questions about their things.
Because we have common experience in your life, so maybe you can our inclusion should be out of something that is not in your life. Example, your wallet or something.
Okay, your bag. This is. I don't find. There is nothing. This is money. I just bring all of materials in here. This is like this is a detail of the programs, and then this is notes because I want to.
Some questions could be what your favorite thing is. What is most important to you?
F1 and then put picture and
Close your card.
This is an ID card. This is an ID card. And okay, this is the key of the apartment rooms. And this is like this is a library cards. And this is my
Right, you have about 3 minutes more.
card, university.
And we're going to pick some tables to share back.
This like driver's license.
Have a discussion, have a conversation with your partner. You don't have to follow all the questions exactly.
Because I have to arrange
The key to human-centered design is being able to have a conversation like a human being.
for reimbursement. There is okay, nothing to. This is a pen. I think this one. Yeah, that's it. this is like glasses, because actually I forgot to put this to my luggage. Okay, that's it. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions?
Not questions, but maybe conclusions.
Conclusion, that's great.
Yeah, I think only basing on what
Yeah, because I am a person, like I am a person, I want to bring just important stuff, and not important.
and also you constantly need your phone so you don't lose it in your bag.
Yeah, because like
Tell us all a little bit about him.
Yes, so Alex just pulled out everything in the desk, and we found these things that with the most important materials in this bag, and he put it in the plastic bag, right? So it's make proof from the rain or proof it from the water, and we can see that he's a really organized man. And this one
That's
is
awesome.
his draft. And he likes to make some organizations on this paper and then transfer to his computer and transfer to his notebook. So he's really, whole organized and so tidy.
Nice. Very nice. Is that true of yourself, Alex?
Yeah, because
Are you a very organized person?
actually, just a little bit.
Yeah?
Yeah, just
So why do you take notes and then transfer it over to your tablet later?
because I would like to explore everything. So, for example, when I see here, and then I see something that maybe I have, sometimes that I have to explore on my own self. So,
Okay, great. Thank you. Great job, guys. Who wants to go next? Any volunteers? Who thinks their person has a really interesting bag or interesting life? All right, over there. Come on, tell me all about that person. Based on the bag.
Alright. So we investigate Chanmi's bag. Surprisingly, she has a lot of cards. So like she has aliases. She ran away from her country.
There you go. Now it's getting interesting.
And like, wait, this is just a funny thing, so it's not serious.
No. Keep going.
She doesn't spend a lot. She pays by cash, so that the government doesn't track her down.
There you go. See?
And then she has a list of names.
Uh-huh.
So she's a hitman.
Are you a hitman, Chandi?
And then she has a sweet, she has sweet tooth, and like she loves to take care of skin. And then that's it. Like an assassin who loves to take care of skin. And then that's
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. And one last one. Who would like to go? Who would like to share a little bit? Over here? Okay.
Hello. Hi. So I would like to present everyone the bag of A. And then we looked at her things, and then we found a very interesting fact because she keeps everything, like including the pamphlets we got from the first day, even the mangrove that we went already. And then there are like calendars and program sheets, and she brings even like extra sheets to take down notes. So we can see she's a very hardworking student. And then she has two notebooks. And then on her first page, she asked us to write her name in our language. So I guess she wants to learn something new that she didn't know before. So we can see that. And then she also has snacks, which is pretty like not my type. It's like too sour, but then like, yeah, she loves to eat, I guess. And then she also has like a phone, but then it's quite different too because she brings like a lot of efficient cards, so she doesn't have to take it out. She just taps it for some metro, I guess. Yeah. So she's very time-saving, efficient person too. And very important, she brings a lipstick. So
Nice.
meaning she wants to keep herself very clean and pretty all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well
that's
done.
it.
I just want to add that look at our table. We also have a messy detective.
So, look at table now. It's a disaster.
Well, thank you very much. That was wonderful. Great job, guys. So I think you found in this small exercise you can actually find out so much more about people just by asking them simple questions and asking them how they live their lives. Yeah? And actually, had we had more time, we would actually continue this exercise by getting you to actually design a bag for all these people according to their needs. But we're going to do that, a different form of that later. So moving quickly along, here are a couple of things that we use to find out more about people's needs. And we use this from everyone, from governments to banks, to supermarkets, to conglomerates, to schools. These methods apply across the board to help you understand more about people. One of them is immersion and observation. So typical exercises, we go into their homes, we get them to empty out their bags, show us their phone. What we want to do is to get to the bottom of what is important to people and how they make choices every day and what they use. Another very interesting method that we often use is extreme user interviews, right? Because if I looked at this room today and said, which of you is the average user, none of you would raise your hand because the average user is Frankenstein. All right? It's a mishmash of different parts. So how do we get inspired to do better work, and how do we get inspired to design? You can see the toothbrush, right? Your toothbrush on the left where it has a tongue scraper. Oh. Okay, well, I don't need that, but the toothbrush on the left with the tongue scraper, right? We had to design that, and we went to speak to people with no teeth. Why would you? Because people with no teeth still brush their teeth. So why do you need a toothbrush? And then we realized that it was about oral hygiene and mouth hygiene and not teeth hygiene. So we get inspired from these kinds of people. We also wanted to create a better set. So if you look at the next two photographs, a better set of cooking tools for people. And we went to speak to people who had Parkinson's disease to look at all the workarounds that they used in order to be able to cook and do daily tasks better. And that enabled us to design a bunch of kitchen tools that could meet the needs of normal people like us, help them grip things better. But the extreme user was able to show us and articulate that need to a much more, we could actually see their struggle in person and use that to inspire design for everyone else. And last but not least, we use a lot of analogous inspiration. Analogous means very parallel. I'll just give you an example, and I think that best describes it. We were asked to design a better operating theater experience for doctors in a hospital. You know, you've got a patient dying on the table, you've got to get him out, you've got to sew him up. And to inspire all these different nurses, doctors, clinicians, we brought them to a F1 or NASCAR pit to look at how the pit team actually put a car back together in the pit stop, right? So if you think about it, there are lots of parallels to that. You've got a car coming in, you want to win the race, it's time sensitive. If you get this wrong, you either lose the race or the fellow will die because he will crash his car. And have you seen one of these things taking place before? It's like clockwork. They go in, everyone knows what they're doing, they fix on the wheel, they pump in the gas, and off the guy goes in like a matter of seconds. And we brought them there to look at this so they could be inspired around how they could operate better in the operating theater. All right, so observe everything your customers do and learn from it. All right, so take that piece back with you. Be a detective. The second principle is be a mad scientist. And what does this mean? I think a lot of you have questions about how do we start and how do we build new projects. Be a mad scientist is really around the idea of prototyping. So failing early to succeed sooner. As Asians, all of you are I know that we are slightly averse to the word failure. You guys, we like planning, we like perfection. I think perfection would be a theme that a lot of us deal with very often, and you like to plan things to a T. Prototyping allows you to take something out into market, test how people are using it, and then come up with a better solution. I'm going to give you a really quick example, and this is a project that we did with Air New Zealand around redesigning the long-haul travel experience. Right? And it's going to show you how we actually build. I hope the video plays.
Started by flying the innovations company IDEO over from the US to gather insights about the way our customers travel. What we found was that some people think of a long-haul flight as a time to be social. and others would rather just keep to themselves. It had to work for everyone. We ran a series of seat boot camps to put local design talent through its paces.
It's an awesome project to kick off with, and one of those real challenges that you don't often get in your lifetime. Perhaps in simple terms, a bit like a sandpit, where you can just start from nothing and create whatever you want to do. No boundaries, no limits, and just tease out all the different concepts and ideas that everybody has.
We tried some things like people standing up, sitting together facing each other like they're around the kitchen table at home, even stacking people up on top of each other in bunks.
The bunk bed was one of the really interesting concepts, but it put people in a position of being totally undignified in that sort of environment.
To test our thinking, we built a full-size interior section of a Boeing 777-300. Actors and staff were brought in to stage a simulation flight that put the new seats, menus, and entertainment to the test.
Okay. The lights can come on, I guess. I think what you saw there is we actually built out all the seats. I mean, if you sat in a room and discussed how can we improve the long-haul travel experience, and you started building, and you just started showing PowerPoint slides about people in seats, perhaps the bunk bed option might have been very attractive. Perhaps putting people facing each other might have been very attractive. But by actually building these things out and having people use them, I'm not sure if you saw the bunk bed idea, which was popular in the beginning, and then what happens when the guy gets off the top bunk and his feet dangle in your face, and you're like, oops, not really, can't really use that. But that actually taught them to kind of be able to think about their options in a much better way. Yeah. All right. And then, so what we did eventually, we actually have designed a long-haul travel experience for Air New Zealand, and we designed a special configuration of seats for them that allowed people to either share and be social, but also lie back that way, right? And this was just based on building things out together. But many of you may be thinking all of these things are physical. But let me tell you that actually you are able to build out anything that you wish. You can prototype literally anything. You can prototype a service. You can prototype a digital experience. You can prototype everything. So those are bottles, beer bottles on the left. That's a screen in the middle. And those are little things for people with Parkinson's to take pills from. People with Parkinson's can't take their pills because they're shaking all the time. And we thought if we design something with a spoon in it, that makes it a lot easier, because it's, if you sit in a room and say, oh yeah, okay, let's put a spoon in, and people can put the medicine really easily in their mouth. And when we went and tested that out, everyone hated it, because a sickness like Parkinson's makes you feel so useless and unable to even hold small things, that by giving them a spoon, you make me feel even more useless and like a small child. And we take away that basic human dignity. Even when it comes to medication, the sickness is already taken away from them, and we would not have known that had we not built out this little pill box with the spoon. So here you go, we've got prototyping digital interfaces. It can be as easy as smacking a post-it on something and drawing it out. A service, how people buy and choose different snacks in the supermarket. Those are all my colleagues. And of course, you saw this earlier, prototyping a new role. What does this person say? What is when he meets you in the hallway? How does he interact? How does he give you directions? So turn your unknowns into opportunities by creating experiments to find out, find out what your customers respond to. Right? So be a mad scientist. So to cap that off, keep the customer at the heart of everything that you do. So honestly, if I said I just want to design for all students of a certain need, you may not be able to come to a design that could work. Right? But we're going to go into that a little bit more today to think about how you could narrow that question down. And your principles is to be a detective, find out what their needs are, and be a mad scientist. Right? And just a last word on being a detective and why I asked you to empty out your bags earlier. Many times when you think about people, you think about customer segmentation. You go, I'm sure that term is very, very, is familiar to all of you. Where do they live? How much do they earn? How many children they have? What age they are? And you get all those quadrants. It's actually complementary to what I'm talking about today, which is actually behaviors are another way in which you could think about your customer, right? So something that's very behavior focused, someone who's 60 years old could be as fit or even fitter than someone who's 17 based on their needs, or their spirit could be totally different. So now we're trying to get into the behaviors of people and why they do and why they behave in the way that they do. And hopefully this will help you design a product or service or project that will really start to create meaningful impact. So before we move on to the workshop, I was wondering whether you had any questions for me.
Hello, Miss Lishan Soh. I'm Suan from Myanmar.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. My question is more about relationship between being scientific and being artistic, because I'm kind of a scientific scientist person, kind of person, which is not quite creative. But I used to explore so many things, like trying to connect the dot, but the dots were never connected till now. So it's more about the questions about what is the difference between the design thinking that you mentioned and analytical thinking. Because I used to think everything in being rational and irrational. And whenever I think something, the creativity doesn't come out. So what is your view of
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you rational or irrational? Do you think human beings are rational or irrational creatures?
Sometimes rational, sometimes irrational.
Exactly. So if you design something, would you design for rationality? Would you design for people to make rational decisions?
Yes, if so, I will do. I will be rational.
Okay. So here's the thing. So was the lady who froze a credit card in an icebox, was she rational?
No.
But that's how she behaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that tell you about this lady and how she manages her money? And how would you design a solution for that?
So you mean sometimes we need to think irrationally?
We all do. I believe, even though, my dear, you say that you are, first of all, I do not agree that there is a dichotomy between someone who's creative and someone who's not. I think Einstein was one of the most creative people in the world, for a start. If not, how did he come up with all those theorems, and how did he do that 100 years before we even discovered proof for it? That takes creativity as well. Thinking is not split in those ways. Everyone is creative. When you were a child in school and they asked you to draw a horse, and you could draw any way you wanted, and it could have been a horse. But then your teacher said, that's not a horse, and that's when you went, oh, I'm not creative and not artistic. So first of all, never believe that you are not creative or artistic. I mean, I think there's some Singaporeans here as well. I mean, we all went through the school system, and that is not one that breeds creativity. But there are things that interest you, things that you can make. Think to yourself, what are things that you can create, and root that in. If you're doing something for yourself, root that in your own needs and what you want to find out in the world. If you are doing it for someone else, like in the project, go ask them. Be interested in them. Take a genuine interest in people, and the fact of whether they're rational or not rational won't occur to you. If you take a true interest in the person that is sitting opposite you and having a conversation with, what's in your bag? Why is this important to you? Tell me about your children. Tell me about what's in your wallet. Tell me about your relationships. Tell me about how you make choices. Why do you choose this over that? Then you'll be able to get to a true understanding of needs. And actually, whether you're rational or not, won't actually matter at the end of the day. And if it does, the part about being a mad scientist, take that out and test it. See how people react to what you've designed. Build a physical thing, draw an object. Ask them, would you use this? How would you use it? Would you hold it? How would you carry it? How would you use a service that helps you save better? Like that, and maybe you're like, oh, I don't like it because the color's not nice. Oh, okay, how does the color make you feel? Does it make you feel like you're not doing good? As in, there's so many questions. Keep asking why. If someone gives you an answer that you think is irrational, especially in the work that you're doing, ask them why. Why? And get to a point. It's a method, actually. It's called the 5 whys. Yeah, and now I think you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. When if you keep asking why, you'll get the questions that the answers that you want.
Thank you for your suggestion.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Lishan, for your insightful
You're
and
welcome.
thoughtful, innovative presentation. I was so inspired by the way you create
Thank you.
things. And so I have one question about the statement that you mentioned. What people say, what people do, and what they say they do are entirely different. So if so, in what way design thinking and research coexist in make a complete solution? Because people say they like this and actually they don't. So if we come up with a different thing, so how can we manage to be, that thing is reliable to the market?
I think that's a great question, actually, and we get that asked. That gets asked to us all the time. I think, first of all, you need to speak to a variety of people, and everything that they say, they do, they think, everything goes up on the board, right? Like you cannot make decisions based on one person alone. And many times, many of you already have existing data. Like research has been done to show you how many people don't have, for example, access to clean sanitation. You have that, but then you want to go in and understand those behaviors. So they're telling you all these different things. So let's say you speak to maybe 20 people, and you've got your entire room is plastered with Post-its and photographs of what they're doing. And you can start to spot those patterns, right? So today, I'm giving a presentation, and later on, you only interview one person. But in real life, you will actually speak to spend lots and lots of time with maybe 20 people who represent certain pockets and you have big questions for them that you need answers to, right? And put them all up, and you start to be able to connect. I like what he was saying earlier about connecting the dots. How do you connect the dots between all these things, right? And so what are they really saying? What are the needs? So you're not just designing for one person. You're think about people as people that you can be. Think of people as inspiration. It's inspiration for design. Their behaviors, what they do, what they say, what they think, will inspire what you eventually do. Don't take what they say as gospel. Because if you ask me, and also, don't go asking someone, so what do you want? Because if you ask me what I want, I'll tell you I want $2 million, I want to go to the moon, I want to be an astronaut, I want all these things. That's not a good question. Ask them why. Ask them why they chose to do this kind of thing. Ask them what their dreams for their children are. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, thank you for your very inspiring presentation. I really like the design-oriented methodologies. So my question, if time allowed, I have two questions. The first one is that how can you actually apply those human-oriented design methodology to address the global challenges such as poverty or interregional conflicts, such as things like that? And the second is that I'm currently working at an INGO called Liberty in North Korea. And then I found that we have to actually localize branding of the NGO in South Korea. So I'm wondering if there are any successful what are the characteristics of successful branding of NGO? And then could you, if you have any experience with that, could you give me an example? Or if you don't have direct experience with the branding NGO, then you can probably give me some insights or advice for branding. Thank you.
Sure. So can you remind me of your first question again?
How can you apply those human-oriented design methodologies to address our global challenges?
Okay, great, thank you. So I'll answer that one first, which is global challenges. So later on today, we'll do a little exercise, which is called crafting a great question. Because getting to great design begins with asking the right questions, right? You can't create answers to something where the question is just, how can we solve poverty? I mean, none of you are going to succeed doing that. Sorry, I know you're great and smart, but that question is not going to lead you to anything you can actually do. And I think what you are all here today is to look for things that you want to do. So for poverty, it depends on where you are, who is asking, what the resources are, and how you can get to a better question of which aspect of poverty you want to solve, which reason of the many reasons that exist for why there's still poverty today do you want to go after? And you start there, you test, and then you scale. And so it also depends who's asking, right? So for example, earlier I talked about Innova Schools in Peru, which is, you can also Google and you will find everything that they've done. They came to us with a very big question as well. And then they crystallized it into a mission around building future leaders for the country, right? And you realize that this education doesn't even appear in their question. They want to build future leaders and they want to make schools. So how do we build a school that will help build future leaders? Right, so that's one. To your other question about branding for NGOs, I do not actually, first of all, contextualization and localization is super important, right? I mean, regardless, so the Bank of America example where the rounding up happened only works in America, doesn't work anywhere else. So you're completely on point. As for NGOs, I think you would have to go out to find out what those needs are. As for examples, IDEO has done a great work with the Red Cross. I do not know the details for that right now because I wasn't on that project, but it's public and I can send you the link as well. We've done, and IDEO.org does a lot of branding as well. So how do brand and service coincide? And for example, we talked about being a mad scientist. You have different kinds of communications, right? You have posters, you have different colors, different fonts, different ways of putting a graphic together. Why don't you take all those out and test with people? Why don't you print out 5 different ones and go to someone and say, if you saw this on a bus stop or a bus station, you saw this in the movie theater before your movie started, what would you think? Which one would which ones would ignite feelings of you wanting to do something, for example? So there are many ways you could test it as well.